And welcome to the show. My name is Naeem Sharif, and today we have the fantastic, the fabulous Tana Yasu. Miss Yasu, how are you doing, sister?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good. Thank you
Mr.
so much
Sharif.
for coming. We have a fantastic show today for you. We are going to be talking about the Joe Brazil legacy. And if you don't know who Joe Brazil is, as I say on the street, go ask somebody. But you can Google him, and we're going to give you some information today, hopefully that you'll have a better knowledge of Mr. Joe Brazil. Tana, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Tana Yasu, and I'm a stylist and a designer and an entrepreneur. I'm born and raised in Seattle, Washington, and I got involved with community work because of my great uncle, Joe Brazil.
Okay, so he is your uncle, so that is your connection. Okay, so what made you decide to do the Joe Brazil legacy?
The Joe Brazil Legacy Initiative was begun in order to protect and preserve my great uncle's legacy. Unfortunately, after a usurper swindled my great aunt, Frances Brazil, of a certain intellectual property, claiming he was doing research and a history of my uncle. So in order to prevent this, our legacy and our story to be whitewashed and or gentrified, for lack of a better word, after this historian revealed he had no intentions of returning the said property and was in fact going to attribute it to someone else. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that for now. But that being said, we began the initiative of our own in order to assure the true Black history story of Joe Brazil will be in the historic truth, will be the historic truth,
Okay.
maintained and preserved by the community in which he did his great work and the people he did it with and for. So we decided, how would it look if, how could it be with all the racism and obstacles brought about by the racist whites that now a white man who never even knew Joe Brazil would now be the Joe Brazil expert. No, we know Joe Brazil would never stand for that.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's what sparked it.
Wow, that is, I think you mentioned that to me once before, but you rekindled my thinking on that. That's right.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Joe Brazil was a musician's musician, Now, we know he's a jazz musician. Did he go off into was he interested in other forms of music, or was he just basically strictly jazz? Tell us a little bit.
He is a jazz purist.
Okay.
And like I say, I refrain from referring to him in the past tense because I still feel him with me and his presence in the community through all the wonderful people I've been meeting and collecting their stories. So I feel that, he transitioned, but he's still very much with us. So I just say that first. But yes, he's a jazz purist.
Okay. So one of the things about Joe Brazil, and we have some poster shots, some of the history, but one of the things, talk about some of the things that he established in the African American community.
Well, he was the first African American music teacher, and he created a curriculum at the University of Washington. He taught at Garfield, and he also created a Black Academy of Music, a music school. And he influenced many of the artists going around Seattle today, and they are all being very helpful in what we're doing in this endeavor to preserve the legacy and honor that history. Yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about, so the acronym is BAM, so the Black Academy of Music. Tell us a little bit about that and why Mr. Brazil established that.
Well, He was denied tenure after being asked to come to the University of Washington and establish this music program where they had no real knowledge. He created all of the curriculum himself, and in fact would bring many famous jazz musicians, even if anyone was coming to town to do a performance. He pretty much knew them all because he's actually started in Detroit.
Okay.
So he had at his home in Detroit a club basically in his basement. So
okay.
he came up during very tumultuous times, being born in 1927, you can imagine. And so this was a time where artists could come to town and play, but they would have nowhere to stay.
Right.
And so he was in with that situation, and people were always invited to his house, and he just did it from home. And so when he came here, and then he had the same connections, and so whenever they would come to town, they would call him up, and he would invite them to come to the UW and even sit in and pop up and surprise many of the students. And so, and he even helped to get students work with professionals. I mean, he bridged gaps through professional ranks and through age ranks, and many musicians have let me know how grateful they are to my great uncle, that because of him, they've traveled the world and have had very successful music careers.
Well, I can bear witness because I was fortunate to be one of those students in his class. And I think the class was Jazz 101 or Jazz 100. And he would teach you about jazz, he would teach you about the artists, he would teach you a little bit about the notes, where they came from. And, that was really good. He would just, he made it easy where you could kind of understand, well, how was this developed? What was this musician trying to do? And then, like you said, a musician would come to class. Boy, you hit the jackpot. I remember McCoy Tyner and some other people would come to class, and you never knew who was coming. So you didn't want to miss his class because you got to listen to him, you got to listen to him play, Joe Brazil play, and then if you got a guest artist, and they knew him, like you said, they knew him, just like family.
Yes.
So it was just really amazing, and for the UW to not to want to give him tenure, because I forget the requirements for tenure. Something about you got to write something.
Must be published.
Okay.
So that was their reasoning behind denying him tenure. And then I would also probably say, because he was a strong black man, and so sometimes you have to play the game. So that probably played into it a little as well. But so he wasn't published, and although he had been on albums
how many albums?
John Coltrane. I mean, he's friends with Coltrane, known Dizzy Gillespie, and just you name almost any great jazz musician of the time, they were friends.
And his name was on
the albums.
So I think he was published.
Yes, well, we would say
we
that.
would say more than published.
Well, the UW did not see it that way. He was denied tenure, but in that year, 1969, he did develop the Black Academy of Music, where he was able to continue working with the black youth. And he was quoted, Jesse Wineberry did a quote from him at our Joe Brazil Legacy Tribute, which we'll probably talk a little more about, that my Uncle Joe Brazil said, "I teach young black men bars to keep them from behind bars."
Say that again.
I teach young black men bars to keep them from behind bars. And he set standards with these young men that even as I'm moving forward with this work and meeting these gentlemen, and if they're always telling me, "Oh, no, Joe Brazil wouldn't do it like this," or Joe Brazil wouldn't do it like that. I mean, he set some standards in these men decades ago that are still standing strong today. And so I appreciate all of the input
Well, that's good. Very, very good. Very good. So I know you had some more to say.
Yes. So I would like to say we did start a band as well
Okay.
in his honor, because of Uncle Joe. And so we like to give an outlet to the people as they're onboarding and they're musicians. Like I say, I myself, I'm a designer, entrepreneur, stylist. So I'm not a musician, but coming into this work, this legacy work, I felt I couldn't do it without having, I need to walk in his shoes some kind of way. So how? So I know he did his community work as well. So that's why I say I got involved with a lot of different community organizations, such as the Historic Central Area Arts and Cultural District. And I was involved with the Disabled American Veterans.
Okay.
You know, doing a lot of volunteer work and just, you know, getting involved in organizing community events, marketplaces and things like that, just so I could really get a real feel and sense, you know, because I knew this wasn't going to be a easy task, you know, from all the levels, from just everything that it would entail. And the story is so huge because understand, I was just a baby, you know, so I wasn't actually there, you know. Uncle Joe is Uncle Joe, you know.
Yeah, he's just Uncle Joe, yeah.
And it was like, oh, when Uncle Joe gets home, be quiet and, you know, get out the way. He's just, you know, just a very serious man. Growing up, seeing him as I'm growing up, I can just always remember him coming in with his briefcase, and now I know what he was dealing with. So, you know, so that's just something else. So you take for granted. You know, I can say I took for granted that this great man, my uncle, worked so hard. And he did influence me. And a lot of people tease me now about my work ethic and what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, when you see what I saw and how I was even, so, okay, this is what you do when you're grown up.
He was a busy man.
You go to work.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we go just look at the posters and you talk about some of the pictures there on the posters, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
Okay. And you might want to go, just watch your step there. You can go either way. That's fine. You can go that way. Just watch your step.
So, now, there was also Black Arts West, apparently. And Uncle Joe did music. He did music with them for
Black
many
Arts West,
they
put on plays.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they were a long time Black theater company of Seattle, a historic theater company. And should I stay on this side? Sorry.
That's a good side.
So Uncle Joe did work with them. He had television appearances. Here he's on the album of Roy Ayers, Ubiquity album, John Coltrane, as I said.
So let's get that. So back up this way towards me, and let's get that shot of John Coltrane. Where is he with John Coltrane?
Oh, well, this is the album.
Okay,
cover.
that's the album.
So
they're going to get a shot of that. Yeah, they're zooming in on that.
Oh.
Yeah, so
right
here.
here.
Yeah, you can see it on the
So
monitor.
he did play this album. John Coltrane came to Seattle and was with my uncle, and they recorded this album in Everett, actually, at an Everett studio. So, and he's on there. There was a time right here, the King of Sweden is presenting him in 1976 with an award. During this time, things were very volatile, and apparently some Sweden, other people came and gave him honor.
So foreign countries would come and give him honor, but he couldn't get the honor in the United States. That's a familiar song. That's a familiar tune.
Yes,
you know,
and I mean, and even on that line, if it's okay, yesterday I was able to do an interview with Mr. Elmer Dixon of the Seattle chapter Black Panthers.
Yes.
And he mentioned to me how he had been in Sweden, and they knew more about what was going on, knew about the history, the true history, than the American people. So yeah, these are things that. This is why it's so important, because the history can get skewed and told by mainstream and people that do have more power and money and influence, and they can tell it how they want to tell it. And so this is why we are steadfast in in maintaining the black culture and the black history, and because that's what Joe Brazil was about. You know.
Okay, very good. Let's look at, I'm going to kind of step in front of the camera, but this is a good shot of Joe Brazil there with the saxophone. And
saxophone, tenor sax, flute, drums. Shucks, you could probably name almost any instrument.
wow, he played the drums too?
Oh yes,
Oh my
yes.
goodness.
But you know, like African drums, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
he
the
was
congos and
he
stuff
was
like
a all-around musician, and he also made it clear that even Beethoven, being black, you know, he was very prolific in his studies and his beliefs, and very vocal, and a strong influence. So we were lucky to have him. He did a lot for Seattle's black culture. Yes.
Definitely so. So then here's a picture here of the Black Academy of Music, somebody on the big drums there. And just tell us a little bit more about the Black Academy of Music and why he established it.
Well,
And here's right here a drummer, and then
yes.
yeah.
Well, a lot of that, like I said, because it was hard for him to get in with the establishment. You know, he would try and make those connections, but because he wouldn't play the game, so to speak, they would end up maybe shutting him out, right?
Okay.
So he's like, all right, fine. I'll build my own situation so I can do things how I want to do them. So he connected with other people. We have, and here, it's an educational institution dedicated to uplifting the consciousness of people through music.
Okay.
You know, the Brazil Academy of Music provides instruction to those who are just beginning, as well as those who are continuing. And through this, you know, he really galvanized the black community and helped to launch many musical careers.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Any other pictures you wanted to comment while we're over here?
Yes, he even went out. This is going out to prison. So he worked at the prison complexes, taking music and out to there and just keeping people encouraged.
So he had a music to prison program going on.
Yes, he was all about instilling pride. Because if you can imagine, the man was born in 1927 and coming up through the Great Depression.
Right.
And coming up through times, Jim Crow laws and you know, segregation and just dealing with all of that. And so uplifting the people was very important to him.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Yes.
All right. Anything else you want to comment while we're here on this?
Well, again.
Oh, defend Joe Brazil. Oh yeah.
Once again, you know, this situation is unfortunate because we focus on the positive though, and we have so much great positive things going on in the community that it just warms my heart. And but this is really what it's about, keeping it 100, as they say, and not allowing, you know, the struggle
yeah.
to overtake and overcome us. I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So I see there also that, you know, they were you know, trying to mess him over, but then I see a little poster there that says Teach-In Against Racism, and it was at the University of Washington in the Hub Auditorium, and it mentions some names: Thomas Akins, Jose Williams, Joe Brazil, and some other people. So he was talking not just about his having to do with, but the general overall things that were going on at that time and still today.
Oh yes.
So, yeah,
50 years later,
Yeah,
or
50
is it 50, 55 years later?
Yeah.
And it's still the same, practically, situation. I mean, 'mean, 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 maybe because some people say the latest establishment that really knocked back a lot of our progress. But yeah, like I say, it's unfortunate. We
Yeah.
should be able to be just doing music. I mean, music is
Right.
so, it's just about being joyful.
Exactly.
Who plays music to get depressed? You know, like we're doing this music.
Exactly.
It just wasn't to have a good time. And
Yeah.
then, oh, okay, now we got to stop and kind of go do this work.
Yeah, because you
So,
want to soothe your mind. Yeah. Even driving in back traffic, if you got some music, it helps, like you were saying.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
considering the fact that it was all positive
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and wanting to create more positivity, pride, and just stability, you know,
Right.
because that's also helping with economics. This is people being able to work, feed their families.
Exactly.
And so that's also something that was spoke of at the tribute. We did a Joe Brazil Legacy tribute back in June.
And where was that at? Langston Hughes?
Yes, we did that at Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute. And Doc Maynard, actually, he's one of our band members in the Joe Brazil Legacy Band. So a lot of the people got to speak about their experiences with Uncle Joe, and Doc Maynard made it a point to say, yes, Joe Brazil, he could have been out famous on the road, but he had a love of, he wanted to be with his family and in the community. So he even had a choice there. I mean, he sustained himself mainly, he was an engineer too, so and computer,
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So the music was his love,
Yeah.
but he decided to, feed that back into the community, stay with his family. Like I said, John Coltrane came to Seattle to record the album. Like,
That's amazing.
yeah, I want to
Yeah.
do it, but can you,
Yeah.
come out here? I don't want to, let's.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna say what the conversation went like, but that shows
Yeah.
that I'm here. This is where I am now, and this is what I'm doing now.
Right.
With these people in my family, as opposed to taking that road to fame and fortune, what so many people do, and perhaps it was seeing the what happened with some of that if you're not careful out there on the road.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
and that's why I say the stability, the ethics that he taught, and standards that he taught, and how these men and women are still, upholding them, and just Joe Brazil wouldn't do this that way,
Exactly.
or no, if we're gonna do this, it's got to be like that, because this is Joe Brazil, and so I'm
Gotcha.
just totally with that.
I understand. So I see you got the Joe Brazil T-shirts, and we'll talk about those later, but that's outstanding. So that's all we'll say on that you got the Joe Brazil T-shirts to honor his legacy. So let's go on back to the table. I think we got about maybe 4 more minutes,
Oh, okay.
and we can kind of wrap this one up. But hopefully we can, this is part 1, so hopefully we can do a part 2 of this. I think we got some more ground to cover,
Yes.
and we'll get to that. So we talked about, okay, let's talk about the reunion, and let's get those slides up of all the different things of the reunion. So if our technician would put some of the slides, we can mention that, and also the audience can have the information right there. So the audience, I would grab a pen or paper if you got it, so you can jot some of these things down, or use your phone so you know what's happening. So
Yes.
let's go with the Joe Brazil. There is the
Contact information. So if you want to, if you know someone, someone you know is a Joe Brazil ex-student, ex-mentee, or affiliate that might be able to contribute to the legacy, because this is a community situation that we want everyone involved. That would be great. We could be reached at joebrazillegacy@gmail.com by email, and our web presence is at Patreon, which is a internet platform. It's similar to Facebook, but it's for artists. So we're at www.patreon.com/joebrazillegacy. And if you're not a techie person, because I realize a lot of people aren't with email and internet and Facebook, and just a telephone type person, that's fine. 243-2739. Just give a call, leave your name and number, and say that you want to get involved with the Joe Brazil Legacy. You might have a story to tell, that you want to contribute to the documentary we're putting together. So, upcoming in September 8th, we have a BAM reunion, which is the Black Academy of Music reunion. This is the students, former attendees of BAM, friends, and comrades of Joe Brazil coming together in this premier event at the historic Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute. Saturday, September 8th from 1 to 5. We're having the meet and greet time and reunion time with photographers, and take pictures and just reconnect from 1 to 2:45, and then we're having performances from 3 to 5. And last time we had about 10 musicians on stage, and it was just fabulous. That was for the tribute. So we're looking forward to just having a really good time there, honoring the legacy and remembering and reconnecting. Yes.
Sounds good. So you also have the jazz and blues on Sunday nights from 7 to 11 at, what is that, the Cafe?
Cafe Ibex, yes.
Ibex.
So we created a band. We are the Joe Brazil Legacy Band. That's more walking in my great uncle's shoes, so that I could have a real sense of what it was like. So we have this band, and we play at Cafe Ibex, which is located at 3219 Martin Luther King. Oh, it's on the screen. 3219 Martin Luther King Jr. Way South in Seattle, Mount Baker neighborhood from 7 to 11. The band members are Dennis Blackman, Doc Maynard, Joe Pelham Jr., Ed Taylor, Larry Jackson, and Dana Parker. And oftentimes other Joe Brazil acolytes come through and play with us, and we have a really good time. So we will invite you down. No cover.
Okay, well, Tanya, we thank you very much. I see that we're gonna have to do a part 2 because there's some slides that we want to show.
Yes.
So check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the different community TV programs. And we thank you for your time, and we thank our audience, and we thank our crew. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.